Good afternoon and welcome to Markets Today. It's Wednesday, smack in the middle of the week, and another very interesting week for the Nairobi Securities Exchange. My name is Mbitha Mwema. I am your host for today. I will be giving you an overview of the key financial news that's shaping activity this week in Kenya. By that, an overview of what was happening yesterday on the Nairobi Securities Exchange, as well just as an overview of what are some of the trends we have been seeing in terms of traders looking at investment opportunities on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. It's a Wednesday, and each and every Wednesday we actually bring to you something to do with technology. We like to call it here not a ladies' night out, but an afternoon with ladies in technology. Today, we are switching the narrative a little bit because technology affects each and every person. So we have a gentleman in studio to walk us through what are the up-and-coming technology trends. I will introduce my guest later on, but you do not want to move an inch. If anything, you want to be able to invite other people to join. Here's the reason why. Our guest who's coming after the break will be taking us through some of the trends that he has seen in terms of SMEs, that's the small and the micro as well as the large enterprises in Kenya. What have they done in COVID-19? How have they used technology to be able to adapt to a changing business environment? And more importantly, what opportunities does he see for businesses when it comes to the adoption of technology to enhance and drive profitability? I will introduce our guest in a few. But for now, let's take a look at what was happening on the NSE yesterday. This week started on a low. Monday, 86 million is what was traded. But yesterday, we did see a 660% increment in terms of the trades that were going through on the NSE, largely driven by Equity Bank. 8 million shares were traded in Equity Bank. Some slight uptick there, but let us see what was happening with the key parameters, starting off with the indices. So we have the indices. That was the chart that we were looking at just before, and there it is again. NSE All Share just lost a little bit of ground, losing 18 basis points to 146.57. NSE 20 was flat over the day, losing 2 percentage points to 1,780, whereas the NSE 25 share index was down 7.56 percentage points to 3,286. Let's take a look at what was happening in as far as turnover is concerned. As I had mentioned, Monday was a pretty slow day, 86 million. That's the value of what was traded. Yesterday, however, we saw a 660% jump, with the turnover jumping all the way to 659 million worth of trades. Foreign investors were dominant in terms of the activity yesterday, making up the bulk of the purchases as well as the sales. 659.7 million, that's the turnover that the NSE saw yesterday, a material jump from the beginning of the week. Let's take a look at who are the key drivers for yesterday's performance. Equity Bank was actually at the helm with 9 million shares traded at an average price of 34.7 for a cumulative turnover of 312.9 million shares. 9 million shares by virtue of volume in Equity Bank is a huge chunk. Equity and KCB on a given day, on a good day rather, they tend to trade 2 million or thereabout in terms of the volume of shares. 9 million is almost 5 times the regular average volume that we see going through Equity Bank. This trade was dominated by the foreigners on both the sale and the purchase side of it. Second largest trade for the day, Safaricom, which traded 4 million shares at 33 shillings per share for a cumulative turnover of 136.4 million. Safaricom for the last 2 weeks has been seeing a hefty demand, with a lot of interest coming in from the foreigners. This demand seems to be tapering off, at least from what we have seen yesterday, 4 million, and today it looks unlikely that it will actually beat yesterday's levels. East African Brewery saw a bit of trade going through there. 676,400 shares traded at an average price of 152.75 for a cumulative turnover of 1.3 million shillings over the day. KCB Group was fourth on our list there, 1.2 million shares traded for an average price of 36.8, and Cooperative actually made our chart this particular day with 2.18 million shares traded at a price of 11.65 for the day. Let's take a look at who the top movers were by virtue of volume. Again, Equity Bank, as expected, 9 million shares traded, Safaricom 4 million, Cooperative 2 million, KCB 1 million, and Kenya Power 1.1 million. What is happening by virtue of price? Let's see who the top gainers were as well as the top losers. But before we get into the statistics, what we have been seeing is that Safaricom has been trending upwards, has gotten to a price point of 33 and is sort of trading range bound at the 33 shilling mark. The banks, we've started to see a bit of weakening, especially for KCB and Equity Bank, which tend to be a proxy for the expectation as well as the investor sentiment on the NSE. For the other banks, such as Cooperative and Absa, they have been more or less flat, not too much price activity on this. But on price, what we have actually been noticing is Bamburi Cement. Today, it has traded at 33 shillings per share. We started calling out this particular stock as low as 20 shillings per share. Well, you could be asking, is there still value at 33? Possibly for the long term, but at the current level, we expect to begin to see a little bit of profit taking. By that, I mean that some investors who got in on the low could possibly start to take profit and sell out at the 33 mark. But on the flip side, there is still continued demand, especially from institutional investors. So the price could remain there, or we could possibly see it even hit the 35 shilling mark before the end of the year. That said, yesterday overall in the market, we had the small caps dominating the price movement. Longhorn gained 8 percentage points to close the day at 4.86. Everready gained 6.96 percentage points to close the day at 1.23. Express Kenya gained 4.65. TransCentury gained 4.13 percentage points to 1.26. Jubilee Holding gained 3.7 percentage points to close the day at 280,000. And this is one of the stocks that is in our radar because it's currently going through a merger and acquisition conversation with Alliance, which is a European insurance company, to buy part of its insurance operations in the East African community. Let's take a look at what was happening with the top losers for the day. The top losers, BOC, continues to lose ground. It lost 9 percentage points to 57.75. It's still been affected by material announcement with Kabasid indicating the intent to acquire 100% of this stock. Between BOC and Kabasid has actually benefited its shareholders following this announcement. BOC has been on a downward trajectory. Kabasid, the stock actually touched a high of 13 shillings post this announcement, meaning that the shareholders of Kabasid have probably benefited from a pretty penny, not only from the capital upside, but as well as the dividend payout. Housing Finance down 8.79% to 3 shillings. CIC Insurance down 4.2 percentage points over the day. I&M Holding lost ground yesterday, 3.93 percentage points down to 44.05. Kabasid losing all the value that it had gained. It had hit a high of 13, now it's at 11.5 and still trending downwards. Is there any possibility for an upside? Possibly a short window. This company did announce a dividend of 70 cents. The record date, meaning the date that you have to be on the register to actually be able to benefit from this dividend, is 9th of January. There is a possibility that as we come to the near end of this record period, that's 9th of January, there could be a bit of an upward momentum, especially from the retail segment, people who might be wanting to lock in that particular dividend for a short period of time. That's pretty much what is happening on the financial markets. It's December and traditionally it becomes a bit quiet, especially in Kenya. After we get to the 12th of the month, then it becomes a very quiet season as the key institutional decision makers take a break. But between now and then, we continue to keep a keen eye on the NSE to show you some investment opportunities that come up our radar. The key thing for us today is Bamburi is now at 33 shillings per share, something that you want to take profit, especially if you bought it at 25 shillings or below. If you bought it at 20 shillings per share, as we had indicated earlier, you're already sitting on a 50% return. That's a healthy return. That's the investment tip from us today. We take a break. When we come back, Wednesdays are all about technology here on Markets Today. We will be speaking to Mr. Munga, who is the Managing Director as well as a Senior Partner for AMG Kenya. Mr. Munga will be walking us through the technological trends. He is a consultant working with small, medium, as well as large enterprises. And we want to understand from him, what has COVID-19 meant? What is the opportunity set for technology? And what are some of the trends to look out for in the coming year? Do you want to be part of this conversation? Well, we want to extend an invitation. Our SMS line is 20146. Please get out your phone. Tell us, what would you like to know? Are you in a business? Have you been able to leverage on technology? What do you want to know when it comes to using technology to drive your business agenda? That's the conversation that we want to have this afternoon. 20146 SMS line, or at Metropole TV on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or at Mbitha Mwema again on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. Let us continue this conversation after the break.